My name is Emily Carter, and I have lived most of my life believing I understood my family. I thought I knew my son, Ethan, better than anyone. I had raised him alone since he was a boy, after his father and I separated. Life was never easy, but I had always prided myself on holding our small family together with honesty, warmth, and trust. Ethan was now a young man, 24 years old, working at a small marketing firm in Chicago. He was the type of person who seemed to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders, even though he was still so young. I had noticed for months that something about him had changed. His shoulders slumped, his smile had become rare, and even though he told me everything was fine, I could see the truth in his eyes. It all began on a quiet Saturday afternoon. I had decided to bring Ethan some food while he was in his room working late on his laptop. I knocked once, but when I didn't hear a reply, I opened the door. That's when I froze. It wasn't what most people would imagine. There was no scandalous scene, no hidden person in the room, nothing inappropriate. Instead, I found my son sitting on the floor, his back against the bed, holding a framed photograph of his father. His eyes were swollen and red, his shoulders shaking as he cried silently. He looked so small in that moment, as though the confident young man he presented to the world had disappeared, replaced by the little boy I once held in my arms. "Ethan," I whispered, shocked by the raw pain on his face. He quickly tried to hide the picture, wiping his eyes. "Mom, I'm fine. Just go." But I couldn't move. My feet felt nailed to the floor. The sight of him broke me in ways I hadn't expected. I realized then that I hadn't truly seen my son in months. I had been so busy working, so distracted with my own struggles, that I had missed how much he was hurting. I walked in slowly, sat beside him, and gently touched his arm. "Talk to me, sweetheart. Please." At first, he resisted, shaking his head, his pride forcing him to keep everything bottled up. But eventually, his defenses crumbled, and the words poured out. He told me he felt abandoned not just by his father, who had started a new family years ago, but also by me. He confessed that he often felt invisible, like he was living a life that didn't belong to him. He was working a job he didn't love, smiling for friends when he wanted to scream, and carrying pain that no one seemed to notice. That night changed everything. I realized how easily I could have misinterpreted what I saw when I first walked in. I thought I had stumbled upon something I wasn't meant to see, but in reality, I had stumbled into the deepest truth of my son's heart. The days that followed were filled with long talks. We started taking walks together every evening, something we hadn't done since he was a boy. He admitted that he felt pressure to be the man of the house after his father left, and that burden had been slowly crushing him for years. I listened, really listened, in a way I hadn't in so long. And I shared my own truths too. I told him how hard it had been for me as well, how I had often put on a brave face just to keep us both afloat. For the first time in years, we saw each other not as mother and son locked in their roles, but as two human beings carrying scars, both deserving of love, compassion, and healing. One evening, while we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Ethan said something I'll never forget. "Mom, when you walked in that day, I thought you were going to judge me or be disappointed. But you just stayed. And that saved me." It struck me that sometimes, what people need most isn't answers or solutions, it's presence. To simply know that they are not alone. Weeks turned into months, and slowly, Ethan began to change. He found a therapist and started unpacking years of emotions he had buried. He made new friends, reconnected with old hobbies like playing the guitar, and even began considering a career shift to something he truly loved. As for me, I also found healing in our new bond. We weren't perfect, but we were honest. And honesty became the bridge that carried us forward. The shock I felt that day when I walked in on my son wasn't about what I saw, it was about realizing how blind I had been to his silent struggles. It was about understanding that even those closest to us can feel like strangers if we stop truly seeing them. Looking back now, I'm grateful I opened that door. Grateful I didn't walk away. Grateful that, in a moment when everything could have fallen apart, we instead began to rebuild. Because sometimes, the most shocking discoveries aren't about betrayal or secrets, they're about love rediscovered in its purest form.